당보 된대. 괜히 맞세나 그도.
너무 괜찮아.
컨서 서버도 저 잠들 쉬어야 돼. 다 나도 산인 나니가 사변박이 니모텔라야 아니 나도 다 로니도 투게즈지 거나야 아니 산지 좀 된데지 다 자가라 와라나실이야 최 당보디 송배 투즈디 계기 요레스 대투디 가지고 투버치 시스는 다 편도 투비 세워 실어야 산지 좀 된데지 최기 콜로 당보 최 당보도 송배기 투즈디 아니 송지시고 요레스.
Well, first of all, my greetings to all of you who are today here the first time for coming here to listen to these teachings or participating in these Dharma discussions. So, as you may know, that day after tomorrow, which is on Saturday, is a day that is very important day, which is observed as the first turning wheel of the Dharma by Buddha Shakyamuni after his enlightenment, which has been more than 2,600 years ago. So, which is known as Drupal in Tibetan, which literally means this fourth day of the sixth month of lunar calendar, Tibetan lunar calendar, which commemorates the Buddha's first public sermons, where he taught Four Noble Truths in Saranath. The particular place of that sermon took place is known as Deer Park to his 5 disciples.
어딘데 인도 산제 점된데 당보 제베세라 총 제베세라 총베 마세 공로 뉴시 자고 사발이야 아니 제복이 부산체네 쇼지 가서 그래 다갑티두기 롭종 나야도 저봐 다지 리네게 준비 다지 롭종 제메리 탐제 타르슨 바체 안다 되네 지 가서 그래 다 개간하지 동네로 소바티도 생니 아니 테네 가서 그랬다 랍도 중내로 와 개간에 편에 아니 랍도 중내 아니 파게 주은 날은 담라야 아니 지 가서 그래 다 도시 지 가서 그래 띵이질라 냠바 샤지 띵이질라 냠바 샤네 가린이 그랬으나 아니 파게 와라나세 송야기 동네 템바데 나란졸라야 지 동네 템바데 안에 나란졸라야 가르이나 동네 땡게지 임바다 대규 군중 템바 안에 빵야 여바지다 대빵베 안에 타르바토비아 여바지 대토야게 람 여바 람 담에도비 셰럽 여바지 딘데 생네 안에 대 공중나네 안에 로 투제지 대쇼 되네 안에 가서 표박이다 다와시베 세바 정하라야 다 가서 그래 묘모바 다 시제티바 탐제 함미도 좀네 아는 건바 저바 상계 되네 다대 상계 차네 와다와대 상계 그랬어
As many of you know, the Buddha was born as a prince in India, and up until till his 29 years old, he lived as a prince who lived in luxuriously in a princely existence. And he has gone through rigorous education and educated by the great Indian scholars, such as arts, sports and all those athletic activities. And having received all those teachings, he was perfected in all those teachings and become a master over all those, subject matter that whatever that has been taught by his masters. However, he was not satiated by receiving those educations, mundane educations, in other words. It is due to knowing the suffering nature of cyclic existence, as he realized that beings are undergoing continual sufferings of aging, birth, sickness, and death. So having realized those unavoidable, the fact of suffering that has been, that's beings who are within this cyclic existence has to undergo, he then cultivate strong detachment or become a renounced with regard to all those mundane activities and mundane he completely become disenchanted by those mundane or the worldly activities. It is thus he decided to leave the palace and went into searching the truth, the spiritual truth, where he had spent more than 6 years nearby the riverbank of Naraja in India, in Bodh Gaya. For having meditated for the 6 years, he has finally found how the suffering is coming into being. What is the causes and condition of those sufferings? Is there a possibility of overcoming the sufferings? If that is so, then what kind of methods or the path which need to be cultivated by oneself to be able to overcome those sufferings? And so therefore, it is through his rigorous, consistent practice of single-pointed meditation, he has gained realization of what we call selflessness by cultivation, as a result of cultivation of wisdom realizing selflessness. So therefore, it is through such realizations in the month of Sagadao, at the 15th of the 4th month of Tibetan lunar calendar, Buddha has said to be eradicated the two obscurations. Obscuration to liberation is obscuration to omniscience. As a result of the elimination of those two obscurations, Buddha then attained what we call complete state of Buddhahood.
상계 봐서 말한도 상계 세다 장축 세야더니 안에 지 코랑 되네 탁싱대 신다질라 폐회 계좌 말해서 와 상계버에서도 다 되네 배지 나도 직딩카 미유되네 배 신감 신다 배 켄 가서 그래 개발진 신다질라 폐회 계좌인데 말해서 양지 꿀루도 배 교버칭네 배지 나란조 등사 데모데야나 도절로 배 소부배 교버라고 시우도 외라고 바로 텐데치기도 와 텐데기 계좌 말해서 봐 상계 수도 잠발이야 아니 나란조기 다 셈스 말해 생기 나라야 되네 야니니 집에 셈 도바 아니 녀몽라 지기 되자 시당 디모 나게 차도 텐좀라 소바 어디서 생겨나네 바 장마 바 매바스 대다야 군지 매바스 그봐 대파빵 안에 대차라야 생겨나라야 안에 니종다 찬주기심 양다베 다와 닌지 침볼라 소바 예게 레베나라 대抗바제 뉴몽 신다드게 바 매바스 텔라야 장 신으로 녀몽트기 파 매버 쇠버들라 장 신네 쌍장 신으로 봐다 셈 야바데기 얘기나라야 레바데야 레베나라 레바데라야 아니 축 신네 봐 장축 아니 게 신네 워 텐데체네 다 대세 자대 버레 체비나 텐데체네 다 공기 투규라야 아니 묘몽지기 강의적이 신득이 자원이네 매바차 아니 랑신 탐제라 대화용약이 삼로데 아니 차상추 좀 잘라야 아니 상계버스네 어딘데 질러서 그랬어. 음.
Speaking of attainment of Buddhahood or the Sangye in Tibetan or the Jangchup, which is a body, attainment of Buddhahood or the attainment of the realization of or the how do we Buddha body fight, the body fight or Jangchup is the body fight. So what is meant by Sangye or Jangchup in Tibetan? When speaking about Sangye or someone who become an enlightened being, someone who actually attains state of complete enlightenment, or who have become who have become a who become a who have completely become a bodified individual. How it happens? It's not that someone who actually you know uh, find that new place or some kind of celestial existence, not transferring from physically transferring oneself from this cyclic existence or this mundane existence to the celestial existence, nor that individual is actually transforming their body into a very luminous body, or someone who become a completely physical change, extraordinary physical change, or the physical appearance. This is not what we are talking about, Sangye, or someone who attained complete state of enlightenment, right? So it is not as something that's a physical change or the external change which are bring about by attaining state of Buddhahood, but rather it is more about mental state where you actually transform your mind, transforming one's negative state of mind into the positive state of mind, such as through elimination of all the negative thoughts and emotions as a result of application of remedy towards all those negative thoughts and emotions, such as attachment, aversion, ignorance, jealousy, and doubts and speculations, and so on and so forth. When one is able to eradicate all those negative state of mind completely, or clear, in other words, clear away, complete clearance or the complete cleansing of all those negative thoughts and emotions, one will then be able to transform one's mind into a purity, the mind of the pure mind, or the purity of one's mind. That is what is meant by attainment of enlightenment. This can be done through the cultivation of renunciation, bodhicitta, and perfect view of emptiness. It is through this realization one will then be able to eradicate or eliminate entire negative thoughts and emotions and completely become a bodified, the state of bodification or the complete enlightenment is what we call Sangye or the Jangchup. Sang means, or the Jang and Sang are kind of, a similar etymology. It's Sangye or Zhang is to purify. Purification from what? The purification from obscuration to liberation, and obscuration to omniscience. And chup or the gay has a similar meaning. And chup or the gay is to someone who has gained all those qualities, the knowledge is actually completely accomplished the knowledge without exceptions, who is able to see entire phenomena as if seeing the things on the palm of one's hand is what we call is gay. So that is what is meant by, uh, the term Sangye or the Changchup.
어다 근데 전에 다자게 돈박이 당보다 그런 제부 포장나라 슈드네 되게 힌두기 다 라마 첨보든데 잠슬하줄라서 베기 근데 라마 첨보든데 데네 코나바기 다 힌두기 최든데 장네 대나네 지 타르바토야기 탑시지 망보 숭샹교디 코랑기 다 거라 지금 롭좀 전에 따도래 전에 다 대속일라 때네 안에 타바 양 타바지 토야며 봐 생니 안 코란 랑기 지 가서 그래 검 잡네 안에 가린 이유에서 나다 뭐네 타바지 토고 중나 안에 셈나게 녀몽바데 바 매바스네 봐 녀몽바데 바 매바스네 대sab랑이 중 찬스 양답에 따와서 안에 생겨나라 수수 심규를 작업하되 코랑기 대 케네 대통령수 시에네 어딘데 남러스
So when Buddha was in his palace as a prince, where he relied on the very authentic teachers or very well-known scholars, the Brahmins, particularly the Brahmins, from whom he has received all those teachings of Hinduism in attainment of liberations and so on. So there is numerous teachings, numerous methods or the teachings on the path, how he can gain this state of liberations. However, regardless of the amount of teachings that he may have received from his teachers or the scholars, he hasn't really found the right path which lead himself to the state of complete enlightenment or the complete liberation from the samsara. It is therefore, he then went on by himself by seeking the actual realizations, actual reality, which really enables him to liberate himself from the samsaric existence. It is through his rigorous practice of consistency of his practice, he was finally be able to identify the obstacle to liberation is nyomo or the defilements or the negative state of mind. It is through the elimination of this negative state of mind, then he convinced himself there's a possibility of attaining complete liberations. And what kind of methods or the skillful means that is needed for him or her to be able to attain these liberations, then he was able to discover that actual practice which becomes a remedy for all these obstacles are Ngejung, which is renunciation, bodhicitta, and perfect view of emptiness.
근데 인디 zambalaya 다 ngaranzo yimina to tsubati yareji ngaranzo la ya ane ji sengenala ya ngaranzo namgi sobenala ya ji ane deja 시단 timu 아제 차도 라서가 셈대조 야 교류 윤데 원도 교류 윤데 셈대조 증원도 교류 윤데 학벌도 공정원도 교류 윤데 좀 발라야 안 가는 좀 맞지 버지 대니가 맞지버지 소소이나 맞지버지 대야 이인바래 아니 다 소소그 티를 여기 미 단어 튼도 소자 준제도 콘도 사대게 될 시나지기로 하면서 거기지 남주르디 바지 나라도 생각나라 녀몽도 제대도 아니 동근 남주르디 고 멘다지 독자지 땡디기로 고 멘다지 땡데도 아니 티기 미나 시나지야지다 티를 계제시마 배워 지야지다 동라마 배워 따마 배워 지야지 미신다이나 근데 요래 수수이나 아니 직세 마지바 제대고야지 연구도 왔어.
So this can be, you know, experienced by one's own, which can be, proof by one's own experience. When one is, becoming under the control, when one becomes under the control of these negative thoughts and emotions, such as attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, or egoistic thoughts, and jealousy, and particularly when one generates this anger. The anger is the one that really destroys not only until our mental, but the peaceful or mental quiescence, but also, transform one's physical appearance into a very ugly appearance, in other words, ugly looking person. Because we know that as soon as we generate this anger within us, the physical appearance, the physical change is constantly taking place. And not only that, it becomes discomfort. You yourself, as become a lack of peace of mind, but also individuals who are in your surrounding becomes uncomfortable by looking at your countenance, your physical experience, your facial experience, and your facial appearance, in other words. Not only human beings, even down to the animals, individual who was completely, become under the control of this negative thoughts and emotions, particularly the anger, even the animals will notice that, who will keep a distance with oneself. So this is how much is negative thoughts and emotions, the result of negative thoughts and emotions are always something that is, counterproductive. So therefore, uh, therefore, when we should always remember that at the moment that you generates anger, negative thoughts such as anger within you, it not only destroys your own peace of mind, it destroys your physical appearance, the natural physical appearance, and not only destroys your own peace of mind, but also becoming destructive or the destructions of the peace of mind of the people who are in your surrounding, including animals.
양 ngaranzo beji semba kibura baji yobada ane shenbenge samlo reji kho debada tinte ji shenla tsewa ge samlo reji kho jeba tinte kabla ya ane ya dong namgyu de to ze madawa de jirwa shenla tsewe samba yudi zambala ya shenla ba namgyu den dan de madawa ji yungor was ane semba kibu yudi zambala yang ji shenla ji gemo tsi re je samlo den ji dong namgyu tinte ji thong de ane phajo de be gawo tsuyo gemo tsi ji namgyu ya bote 키시무타부이나 베지지 슈구리리 첸스 장원야르지 근데 용도 왔어. 걔가 저도 미직벌이도 나도 삼로 두자도 거베 갑라야 아니 남규르데 멘다 셴메가 와서게 삼로 야바 거베 갑라야 아니 수수기부 셴라 가고 용도게 소도고도 왔어.
So, on the contrary, when one cultivates a positive thoughts or the positive thoughts and emotions, such as the thought of working for the welfare of others, welfare of other beings, or cultivating sense of connectedness and sense of caring for other beings. as a result of such, cultivation of the sense of connectedness, the sense of caring for others, it again, transforms your physical appearance. Your demeanors completely changed in a very, attractive looking person. If not attractive, but everyone who would be very happy just by seeing your, appearance and your, by people pleased by seeing your physical appearance. So not only that human beings become close to oneself, but also even the many animals such as cats and dogs and so on. When you have such a loving and benevolent thought within you, it actually manifests into your physical actions, which becomes attractive, not only for the human beings, but also to the animals, down to the animals such as cats and dogs.
어딘데 인도 zambalaya 알아서 맹간나게 암지자오지나 지 네발라게 암지자오지 임비나 아니 지 지단다미 지 다코지 라제스 말에 되게 럽죠 암지기 럽죠 야고 거르도 대나네 아니 네발라 제바 요게데 아니 네발라 제바 유메게 토네 아니 암지기 지금 네발라 면주라 펜도 요메데 판조를 제바 유메게 토네 시우두고 있어라 아니 개개인적으로나 안에 파지 로둘러야 로존 때도 개개인들 로존 야고지다 거르도 이나야 대나네 로둘러 파져와 로두 파줘라야 펜도게 삼바 대슈침부지 여야지 개침부 인사를 가서 아니 남런 치면 신이 딘즈나라야 대와 아니 개개인 다 개준 상승지고야 돼 빼마시 개침부로 와 이나야 케바다 줌바니기나네 안에 가랬던 게 있어. 개개 가랬던 게 있으나 안에 개개 줌바됐던 게 있으네. 텐데 송여를 와. 케바지 제 안에 줌바다 파줄을 쯔와면은 케보 가제 있나 안에 루툴라 펜스 토그 메미래. 텐데 인디 잠발야 안에 산지 좀 된데기 가서 그래. 지 타지 란진진기 죄배 안에 되자시단 데모트도 안에 랑신 심제 탐질이야 동해 속이기 셈이바다 안에 셴뱅기 삼배 죄배 안에 내중다 창조기 셈다 셴뱅기 셈다 대도 정말 안에 랑신 심제 탐질이야 안에 지 대화 중기기 삼로이바 대생은 야고바 어딘지 다 최근 님부 도도래 됐어.
So for instance, if when the physicians are treating their patients, not only they are utilizing their skills of treating their patients, but also, of course, the skills of treating that the sickness of the patient is something that is important, but particularly to have the benevolent thought or the compassionate thoughts, a sense of caring, a sense of connectedness must be cultivated as a physician when the physician who he or she is actually treating that patients. And the result is immensely, there's a difference in a result. Even though one may give them a treatment, but treatment is given on the basis of cultivation of compassion and love and sense of caring to the patients. There's a big difference. Someone who doesn't have the sense of caring and sense of love and sense of connectedness with the patients who is giving the same treatment, but the result, the effect is completely different. So therefore, as cultivation of love and compassion to anyone, everyone, as a practitioner for us particularly is something that is very important. So similarly, if someone who is a teacher, not only that you utilize your teaching skills, but you on the in conjunction to your teaching skills, you need to have this sense of caring and sense of compassion to connectedness to the student is something that is very, very important. We although the teaching skills is needed, which is very important, at the same time, compassionate attitude towards the student is something that is very, very important. So it is therefore we find in the the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim Chenmo by Lama Tsongkhapa, where he has stated that the teacher who teaches the Dharma is not only to have a skill in teachings, or someone who is well-known scholars, or someone who has a very skill in teaching, but important is to have a morally impeccability of moral conduct is very important. And someone who has sense of caring and sense of connectedness with his student is very, very important. So it is for this, it's therefore with the teacher who has all those qualities, especially the Dharma teacher who has all those qualities, then be able to, eradicate the sufferings of the disciple who are actually receiving the teachings. It is for this Buddha has stated that all those sufferings and unwanted situations that are coming into being due to our own self, due to our negative thoughts, particularly of self-cherishing, attachment, aversion, ignorance. Not only it becomes a cause for one's own suffering, but it also cause for the suffering of other sentient beings. On the contrary, if one is able to cultivate renunciations, bodhicitta, and with the perfect view of emptiness, it's not only bring about a blissful experience of oneself, but also provide extraordinary blissful experiences for other sentient beings. So this is what we call the actual practice of Dharma would need to be, need to be cultivated by ourselves.
Honest. 산지 좀 된데게 딘데게 가상 보진 나샤와 탐제다 간주로 차샤오나 맞아 피잉나를 규산조 안에 부디 갸제지 요레스 간주로 부디 갸 어디나게 된다 탐제 닝도 수 뒤산조데 안에 지 다 가서 그래 되자 시단계 준비 녀몽바 빵거바다 니중단 찬주게 쓴 준비 안에 지 시바 상보도 랑게 추규를 깨워지야 어디 탑시 짠장 송요레스
So Buddha has given numerous teachings. The teachings that we have translated in Tibetan are more than 100 volumes, what we call Kangyur, the translation of the Buddha's teaching, the sutras, that is Buddha's teaching that has been translated in Tibetan as more than 100 volumes. And all those, the meanings or the contents, the practice that has been described in those more than 100 volumes can be encapsulated within the practice of how to, eradicate those negative thoughts and emotions, attachment, aversion, and so on. And through the cultivation of renunciations, bodhicitta, and perfect view of emptiness. And all those teachings are encapsulated within this, three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and perfect view of ultimate nature of reality.
근데 선데 다디 진짜게 낭도 닝부 마드네 다 가서 그래 낭도 닝부 마드네 안에 산지게 송된 낭본 닝부 마드네 아니 공부루두기 다 차비 망보지 제샤베 나네 아니 코랑기 다 공부루두 코랑기 다 가서 그래 세상마시나 코랑기 초보 아니 개부 대제 상벌라야 망베기 아니 시팅 대나나다 산지의 송티기 마 두두체네 차상지마 다 송산교데 당한도 저주고 요랬어.
So all those teachings of the Buddha, the subject matter of the teachings of the Buddha are encapsulated in the teachings given by the Arya Nagarjuna, what is called the letter to a friend, whose friend Nagarjuna is his friend King Surabhapadra. The actual subject matter that we are dealing with at this point is Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. All the teachings of the Buddha is encapsulated within this. And this is the subject matter that we are discussing here, which is nearing to finish. We have only several verses that is to be finished.
당아서데 세제 자다 정업의 인사를 간다 청의 기바 대다장 데려도라. 예, 따가라 봐라. 어디 데이터데 마시고 있어.
So now we will follow the text. Nagarjuna's letter to friend. We're on the verse 116. Whoever's met the Dharma manifest in themselves.
다디 세제데 간다 청의 기바 대다장 남래 바바 말라 로토 신 서름 내튼 말라 대당은 뉴모랄레 대보 코나라베스 세제데 된데스르샤.
So now let's read this verse 116, where it states that whoever's met the Dharma manifest in themselves, they are not in fact beings who have fallen from the sky. They aren't beings who have sprung up like a corpse from the womb of the earth. They were merely ordinary people before who were dependent on their disturbing emotions and then so.
어디다 대단다데 된다래도 세제리게 된다데 간다 청은기 바데다 장선에 점발이야 다 산지 좀 된데지 송샤가 이게 동네 덴바다 군중병 덴바니 파방자 들어와 파 돌자 들어와 어디 파 돌아야 대당 아니 남기 덴바다 고베 덴방원도 제다 수주비야 들어와 어디 주비야 집어 대조 세르와 아니 남네 마사요야 요마레스 남네 마사지 수술라 라야케 요마레스 아니 야지 던도 나신 거랑도 대다 주식이 던도 나신 아니 산에 야지야케 요마레스와 산에 된바야케 요마레스 아니 대조 지 단단 거랑도 거베나게 동네 교야데 가르쳐 비레스나 아니 묘몽라 묘몽게 왕주제 묘몽베 왕라 쇼제라야 아니 다 나랑도 코발로 코데로 왔어 다 나랑도 대 가서 그래 남기 덴방문도 제네로 봐 남기 덴방문도 제네 아니 남기 덴방문도 제네 아니 고배치로 봐 동네 덴바도 군중 덴바 배디 빵바데 토그로 봐 빵바데 토그로 봐 어디 이제 좀 발라야 코발라 주야 돼 녀모라 라레 봐선자 아니 코발에 타야 돼 뉴몽방배 빵바데 토비야 돼 고된다 남데니라 라레게 여장 아니 지랑기 제보 지랑기 될라야 아니 닝톱기네 봐 닝톱기네 되라야 로정 지구레스 어디 레시
So the verse, the meaning of this verse here, it says, whoever made the Dharma manifest in themselves, they are not in fact beings who have fallen from the sky. They aren't beings who have sprung up like a corpse from the womb of earth. They are merely ordinary people before who were dependent on the disturbing emotions and so. So here, when the Buddha speaks about abandonment of suffering, abandonment of suffering and its cause, right? And achievement of cessation and the path which leads to the cessations. It's not something that is fallen from the sky, nor emerge like a corpse of corns and so on from the earth. The earth's dark depths. So it is only through the cultivation of this path or the actualization of the path which enables all those negative thoughts and emotions. In other words, suffering and its cause is eliminated. As a result of elimination of the suffering and its cause, one then attain moksha, or one then attain what we call cessation from sufferings, cessation from sufferings. As a result of gaining the cessation, one will then be able to attain what we call nirvana, or the free from samsaric existence. So it is therefore Nagarjuna has given this advice to his friend, the king Surabhabhadra, by saying that as all those great beings of the past have gone through such practice to attain liberations, thus it is therefore you also courageously engage in this practice and rigorously engage in such practice so that you will be able to gain perfect state of liberations from samsara.
好了，다 그냥 지지 야다는 주주바데 님바테와 망도 수지체스 펜베 당아 더보델라데 kyuji 두두즈지 좀 된지 셈네 kyuji 자와 라바송스 맞다래 라스
이슈가 기사
라스
들어봐. 계단 주로 내려봐 기사 들어봐.
아 질
주로 됩니다스. 언제인지 나리야. 그
아네 라스
이제 가서 당근되게 돼 다다시 되기면도 거기는 이제 배배.
라스
So now we're on the verse 117, where it says, "What need to console you more than a fearless one? The most important advice that of benefit is this: tame your mind. The vanquishing master has proclaimed, mind is the root of all preventive measures of dharma."
알았어. 다디게 전다데 마시샤나 디사레. 아니 직바단 태와스르와 님바단 태와스도 직바단 태와. 아니 개보 키라라 대보 디제 성부 키라라야 다 망보다 쉬고 망도 수지 세스도 망보다 쉬고 말했어. 아 망보 쉬고야 요 말했어 키라라야. 이나야 아니 키라라야 펜토야게 당아 아니 전여봐 전보스도 전여봐 아니 대인스를 왔다 시딩디 인스 키라나 펜토야게 당아 전여게 아니 레셰 시딩디 인스를 봐 텐데 인도 좀발야 레셰 시딩디라 롭종 제네 아니 키라한게 셈디 두부체네로 셈디 바 뉴몽베 와라 마주버지 약보지니 나로 나스 텐데 제로 나스 투 두부지 제로 나스 안 가르레스나 아니 셈 두바디 아니 취기 자와레스네 산지 좀 된데기 송샤스네 어딘데리샤.
So now this verse emphasizes, the essence of the teachings of the Buddha and encouraging his Nagarjuna's friend, teaching Surabhadra, to engage in the practice of the Dharma, to eliminate the negative thoughts and emotions, where he stated that although, I didn't really have to, advise you much, yet at the same time, I'm giving you this instructions, something that is very beneficial for you if you follow this practice, which is text of letter to friend. And it is through following this practice, one should not let one's mind become under the control, under the power of negative thoughts and emotions, such as defilements and so on. It is by following this practice, one will be able to tame one's negative state of mind. As Buddha has stated in the past, that taming one's own negative thoughts and emotions or the mind is the essence of the teachings. But Buddha beautifully essentialized by saying taming one's mind is the essence or the meaning of the teachings of the Dharma.
알았어. 다 지제티 오마데 줄라 디게 담바 칸라 데스. 배버 결론지냐. 지버가 대외 간시 주변 오버데 윤대 땜베 꾸지 등유즈스 어드리실.
Son of God's 118, whatever guidelines these are for you in those words, were difficult even for a monk of carry out perfectly. So try to make as the essential nature of your conduct, whatever aspect of this that you can, and by entrusting yourself to the good qualities coming from that, make this lifetime meaningful.
어야. 대가르스 나타 제보 지나라야 내야 제보 되지 송고 지나라야 네 공부로로기 야 고르샤ጆ기 시딩 대서로 봐 시딩나게 된다데 텔라 순샤조데 아니 지 신나승라야 베 내되게 봐 차대 리트리치네 곰되게 결론트 속에 안에 베디 차상랑낸 따야지 베깔레 카보레스 로아지 칼레 카보레스 텐데 손자 안에 김란내지 안에 지 킹게 자와망 뭐 텐데 지기다 안에 대ton다데 베디 차장지 냠내 지도야 요 말레스 이나 양 안에 대나게 안에 대나라 시딩나라 손산교데 수수기 냠내체 안에 텐데 제비나 안에 개와지만은 송원들 하며 고반다 다 타르통네 안에 난게 찬주도 고반토야게 귤어 죽을 왜 죽을에스 텐데 인도 안에 계란게 대나게 된다서 냠내체네 아 꾸지데 계란게 메제데 안에 된다데 뭐 제로 나스 어때레샤
So what it says is that it is hard enough for monks, even the monks, to follow perfectly all these instructions that I've given you. That is what Nagarjuna is telling his friend, the king. Yet practice excellence and the very pith of the one of this, and give up your life. And so as I give your life, it's a sense. You give your life sense, or in other words, making one's life meaningful or the purposeful by engaging this practice. So it says now, although such teachings, the instruction that I've given, even the monastics or the monks who adopt solitude in a retreat. It's also difficult to carry out all those teachings. And suddenly it will become a challenging for the households. Someone who is not a ordained individual, someone who is not a monk, who is a lay individual. Suddenly it is difficult. It is quite challenging for the for even the households, for the households without a questions. However, if one try to follow as much as one can, the advice that I've given will lead oneself to the higher state of rebirth, such as human, deva, and demigod in one's future life, and it's and eventually, in one's successive lifetime, one will then be able to attain complete state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So therefore, make effort and exert an effort to engage in this practice to make one's life purposeful or meaningful.
好了，他培训的都做都嘛算是了吧？的做了几个城市，但那自己的嘛学的那巨人不过是嘞，你的做嘛算是，你听我了呀，俺做他就嗯。3年你初步测试过给的，他见那边干了的水产意思。
So with this, we'll probably will stop our teachings. I was thinking of completing this text today, but it doesn't look like, because the next explanation as it's more elaborated explanation is needed. So I'll stop here with this, and then prior to our teachings that I have actually given a little background about the Drupal Seiji, which will be coming, which will fall on the Saturday of this week. So for all of you, this is the introduction of what is meant by Drupal Seiji to all. That's all.
安尼记得俺做直播这些管的去做记者一样，俺做都是确定出来有的是安尼，就是希望俺们呢，俺做对吧？那么区别错的，他做有的是安尼，管了不便宜呢。
So on Saturday during the Drupal Seiji, about an hour, so I will be giving the introductions or the overview of what is meant by Drupal Seiji and the meaning, purpose of observing the Drupal Seiji as a special day. And then will be followed by the chalk offerings of Guru Puja in conjunction with Guru Puja. So if you have time, you're most welcome to join.
What time? What time?
去做习惯了嘞。
4 o'clock.
Saturday? Saturday?
Yes. 他顶点的下早晚的写比那俺让做个说不了呀，就那咋着不就嘛用个个写都天呢，就我几个的天呢缺点几个的修几几个的话是，安尼他俺让做什么年的就对着写当题目就做你们这前的什么点嘛就呢，伢伢的缺点修几来下是。
So we are very concerned about our physical health. We do whatever we can to prevent our physical illness. We do everything that we could, right? Whatever is possible for us to be able to do that, to prevent our physical health. In the same manner, it is also, important. It's also very important for all of us to be able to watch our mental hygiene or the mental health by guiding our mind and by being mindful of our mind and not letting those negative thoughts and emotions such as attachment, aversion, and hatred and anger, and not letting those minds take place within one continuum, which is, one of the methods of preventing our mental illness, which will, maintain our mental health.
我了他的做做事，我了是安尼，
This today.
工作了呀，体育员呢，给这提了呢。
If you have any questions,
One moment, let's get the battery.
对对，
Battery. They're ahead of the ball.
哦呀，工作体育员了是以为是给这提了。
你学别去了，学着。
他那的就我节目上，的开发的老早上，研究就学了呢。
So if you have questions, we'll take a few questions.
那当做先把机会员那长话这个多是，先把机会员那那些长话的那这个都，那些草部的那这个都看了新不员那这个都新不面那长话这个多机会多是，先把的都查是那天呢看了看这看了也不看的员那偏给面都，看话的那偏给面都把机会这面多是。
So it's really true that by maintaining this peaceful state of mind, but by cultivating positive state of mind, can can become a antidote towards our external obstacles. For instance, if one has a peace of mind, and if one is in a very state of peacefulness, or being able to maintain our quiescence of mind, regardless of what is happening in our surrounding, be it as a bad weather or even we're not having a good food and so on and so forth, we are kind of okay. We're able to handle that. However, when one's mind is disturbed and one's mind is, overpowered by negative thoughts and emotions, then regardless of what we have in our surrounding, whether we are in a very, beautiful place, or you're offered all kind of, delicious foods and delectable foods and so on and so forth, you will you will not have a mood or the appetite of even eating the delectable food that has been offered.
So, as an odd question, okay, I know, so about our efforts in Buddhism,
给生段了，
the
Bible ji shek de nga ya wo gong men do yin la.
okay, okay.
给钱不就的。
Can you
I can't hear you, please. Can you be specific and on the point?
My question is, am I being over egotistical, thinking that I could obtain enlightenment, where the other Buddhism is like, there's the different forms of Buddhism, we seem to have the most academic and most monk-oriented, as opposed to other forms of Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we being, we're not monks, we're not raised in the culture. Are we going to miss something? Are goals too high for this type of person in this body?
呀，我觉得我马上这一年，他可以车吧，现在就是让你的社会的公民都比个巴布里去切见，呀，我社会去公民都见了，可能的，可能别人的跟你那么这个的，现在个社会去沟通马上，
那是，
那过去社会面都，但俺就蛮些的，就俺就在那边路上这边搞不了，他其他俺就南北一样的这个，个要了马上的个南北等的两年前他忙过，要忙过修就了吧是，你生意都起来讲，所以呢，那俺就别个就路上这，那就路上里样转这别个讲的这，所以告诉这那么就当先用公派打呀，里啊，大家就会转这边的，但俺是公派哪里啊？他跟他们转都是老年那也得干的比这我都是。 니드네 아직 그래서 냠레제제 즉 산지 고반토비알이야 대치 제국으로 왔어. 딱 코로나도 찾아가는 즉딱 한다 딘데기 고유나 딘데기 걸소래 지금 즉 리중 딘데나리 살롬 제비 미지멘도 자네 근데 지금 즉 테스트 그 상금의 멘도스타 디체알이야 야메나고 로정 슈침 제직 로정 제알이야 다 같이 남주 공배터 로정 제알이야 즉 축대be 서럽지 애니네 아직 직선이 소소라니 타바드 탐비 캠베 고반터비알이야 즉 전야리야 즉다 람스네민도 다 간다 탑시디게 따다 말합지 근데 연구 매로스 근데 싫어자
이제는 지당 아주 등산 지 럽다 마물 충충네 전에 되네 마름 럽다 딩린 럽다 토름 럽다 선데 럽다 마고 쇼지제 대가라 베디 지양 챙하게 삽종게 럽다 된데 제네 베 로뉴히제 된데 럽종 지게 여러 왔다 진저게 럽종도 망차게 세타리게 또고게 체도 janjang 잡고 저러 왔어 다 이나양 나랑 조지 단대대 안에 지 랑신 랑다신 안 세대다 치마 대제게 되는 손들 좀 발라야 안에 다 될라야 투주도 당고 지그래서 투주도 당 럽좀 제비나 안 수술라야 세텔라 펜도 침보 안에 메제 되는 펜도 침보 강에다 직경에 바 가르체비나 수수생에 나게 직가서 그래 디지디 말라와 냐토기 텐데지기 약보지 요랬어
So in general, our uh, what we call the education that we are receiving, talking about the mundane in the context of mundane educations, it has a certain sequences or the orders beginning from preschool, elementary, middle school, high school, college, universities, and so on. And even completing that, one spends a numerous time to perfect or the master in one's profession and so forth. However, those are mainly, I'm not saying the 100%, but mainly directed towards one's own welfare, right? One's own, name and fame and one's livelihood to have a, better life for oneself. When it comes to the practice of Dharma, the studies of the Dharma, is not for that, right? It is for happiness of this life, and particularly directing towards the happiness of the future life. The future life is would emphasized more by the Buddha's teaching. So it is therefore, in order for one to attain the actual peacefulness of one's mind, or to attain this chrysalis, or to have a experience of chrysalis within oneself, one is certainly needs to take some more time and put in effort and in a consistent manner. If one is able to do that, then regardless of what kind of obstacles, the unfavorable condition that may befell, one will be able to withstand and to be able to overcome all this.
显得都说，跟他的真的显得没完了，
Now, jail madame, dandara me can let
倒是，工作显得是挺有意思，
come danda mendo can let come issue. I get a chair and it's in the show.
倒是了是，
Get a chair and the California soon you show a shit.
倒是了是，
Nanda me,
俺那平时大家咱们想想能给
game me, can let nanda me, consume do you know me do not just can.
显得是，
The common issue so then I can.
倒是，工作显得是
Any questions?
Thank you for the answer. Thank you. Okay.
Nimala, I think you already answered this, but how do you, once you've attained some of these things, like bodhicitta, how do you protect it from decay? Because everything in human life decays.
Okay. Ngaranzo ta chi mizi denale ta khande yebene ji chazan ko jigbi chojen chagir was ko chi khanda ji ko mebe chai chora ta digese de khanda ko mebe chai shungor was. Ji sonza so ta khanda chenju gi sem jaran jul ke sabe na de ya manyam be cheje ko nya to ya le kharcho gore serbi. The chamber chazan jigbi chojen sonza khanga chig ji mebe chai wor was. The chenju sem jaran jul ke be ne ko da ko set segment de ko de ko yutimendo janju sem de ko jigbe chojen chago robas sonza ani ganzo majigbe cheje janju sem ba janju ki sem de susun woni chi manya be che kandes ko dinyon je to gre ser sungmendo ende chinzare
Yes. Yes. 아, 데이터가 serva. chanchuki semde nga zo manyambaji dewa chimala komdi de ke gugu yina tsedela pe masi komdi den gugu yore stela ya komdi mangbo tene de papja de shaso na ane nga zo dewa chimala ya ane de papja de ya se wonde ane tse taregi chanchu semla gomsha wa zo lamsang ji ya gyule de ya tende yonge yores de nga ranzo tada miji tuk nirwa 미지 드링이 마직도 안에 콜라 깨져도 저 안에 로망베 제로 코지 투디 모싱이 도왔어 뭐야 미지베 단다베디 디부 슈샤 니마 망보베 투데체 니마 망보 투데체 코 깨져시 된데체도 안에 로 가제 치미나 코투 받아가 남사 공원시에로 우리 참마 봐 유이나 남사 공원시에 도왔어 제 다래 코투디 밥자 망보 샤마샤기 지기 이거로 왔어 난 대가 나래서 나랑 쪽이 지 찬주 쌤단 대조 개와 치만 나서 많이 받치고 그이나 세 다리 들려야 검지 가세 마와 땡투야기 데레스 밥자샤야 돼 개침버레스
so it is all the matter of familiarization of the bodhicitta within oneself. One has to practice the cultivation of bodhicitta in a very consistent manner. Consistent practice is something that is very important for one to familiarize one's practice of the bodhicitta. If this happens, then one will be able to implant a propensity or the potency within one's own continuum. And as a result of implanting this potency of the bodhicitta through one's rigorous practice in this lifetime, even when one passes away from this lifetime, when one take a rebirth, the potency or the imprints of the practice of bodhicitta will remain within one's mind, will manifest. And as a very minor instance or the condition, one will be able to cultivate bodhicitta without much effort because of one's own imprint that has left within one's continuum during one's previous lifetimes. For instance, if we meet one individual today and you talk to that person, and then you have spoken with this person, you have contacted and you had, you talked to that person for a briefly, and then you departed each other, and after many years when you come across, and when you bump into each other, you may not be able to recognize that person. However, if one has, someone whom you have, met for many times, and have a contact for many years, and then at some point, and even if you lost the contact. You haven't been able to contact that individual. You haven't met each other for a very long period of time. And even for many years, you haven't met. Yet at the same time, when you come across that individual, the very instant you'll be able to recognize this individual. In the same manner, if one is able to familiarize bodhicitta within oneself, even if one has passed away from this life and changed, already gone through a physical transformation, you will still have this bodhicitta due to the familiarization of one's past life.
Oh yeah. Maranzo de Lamrin Chimenala ya Chanjusim Ane Manyabachia de la Kewa Telaya Manyabachi Chanjusim Manyabachiagi Ane Kare Nabuchi Pangoya Kewa Chimanamso Chanjusim Manyamaya Chedo Kabuchi Tengoya Tende was Tadi Deshu de Namambochasares.
So therefore, we find in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa and Lamrim Chemu, where it stated that in order for one to, preserve or declination from bodhicitta from declining, one need to, engage in the practice which become a remedy for abandonment of the four negative thoughts or the four negative forces. And in order to preserve whatever the bodhicitta that one may have cultivated, one need to engage in the practice, what we call observation of the four positive forces, or the four virtuous positive forces.
Honest. That is.
So that's it.
Thank you.
So we should say the dedication prayers. Beginning on page 23 and 24, and continuing with auspicious wishes on page 25. Agi jine
Sabe Yewa Den Tenda Dowa Gona Lamben Kebara Jizu Losan Taba Ye Tembe Nyembo Rendo Seji Shoro
Saji
Uji Choshin Melo Da Rija Lishin Yinde Jemba De Sanje Shindo Mele Peba Ye Chogo Nanda Shen La Juba Shu Kundo Yanda Lama Dan Cheme Chuji Bela Longji Sadan Lamji Yonde Razo Ne Doji Changi Goban Yurudo Shu Rena Mendela Gani Yada Yami Uze Rabden Jen Nanga Tile Chojuru Jebana Losan Tembe Dreme Sasumji Jove Mese Dado Nejuji Korbe Shinganse Tendan Dewa Male Jene Jere Sewa Dinzin Jatsui Shabe Side Pado Dinjuji Chidra Chemba Dong Kundu Sambo Tenyang Dijili Cheda Kunji Jesu Daloji Gewa Deda Tamje Rabu Tamje Ji Ngowa Ganga Chodo Ngaba De Dashen Gebe Zawa De Gunya Sambo Juji Rabu Ngowa Raji Ah, yeah.